Good morning, Manna Church. Ben Goodman here to kick off this week's devotional series entitled Rising to the Challenge, God's Way. If you've ever engaged Manna's growth track, you've encountered one of Manna's primary operational principles. The church is a force. The church is a force. What does that really mean? Briefly, it means this. God has chosen His church, His people, us, to demonstrate and advance His kingdom, not just in our lives, but also in our families, our workplace, our community, even in our nation around the world. In other words, we have been chosen by God to be difference makers in our many spheres of influence. He has chosen us to be difference makers in our land, wherever that may be. Nowadays, being difference makers in our land is an incredible challenge. Our land is increasingly influenced by the kingdom of darkness. Fear, injustice, deception, manipulation, intimidation, confusion, suspicion, factions, division, hatred, rebellion, violence, destruction, all of these are on the rise. Not coincidentally, biblical truth is also being systematically attacked by hollow and deceptive ideologies and philosophies, which depend more on the traditions of man and the principles of this world system rather than on Jesus Christ. This last point, by the way, comes directly from Colossians chapter 2, verse 8. The marks of the enemy are obvious. Our land needs healing. In the midst of all this, we're faced with a very important question. What should we do? Sincere human wisdom often says, rise up, do something. Just make sure that when you act, be sincere, be passionate, be authentic. I'm not saying that's wrong. God often uses our well-intentioned efforts. But while the wisdom of man might encourage signals of a sincere, virtuous heart, it may not be effective. The wisdom of man often produces Facebook rants. It often produces pressure to proclaim your self-righteousness as you degrade your enemies. The wisdom of man often produces pressure to divide, accuse, criticize, and condemn. It may even produce pressure to hide or conform out of fear of being labeled or canceled. These kinds of results are not likely to help heal our land. What should we do is an important question, but there's another even more important question. What does God say we should do? This question is important because God Himself says His ways are not our ways, His thoughts are not our thoughts. Indeed, God Himself says His ways, His thoughts, His wisdom are way better than, immeasurably superior to, man's wisdom. So here we are. What does God want us to do? When it comes to healing our land, what are God's best practices? One that readily comes to mind can be found in 2 Chronicles 7:14. Perhaps you're familiar with it. If my people, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin, and watch this, and I will heal their land. And I will heal their land. That's a powerful promise, and God doesn't lie. 2 Chronicles 7:14 is especially relevant to us right now in these challenging times. Over the next 5 sessions, please join me. We will break down this verse in very practical ways. We'll do this so that each of us can learn together how to rise to the challenge God's way. See you tomorrow.